I need a favor, a huge one, and I am desperate enough to ask the scariest man in the room.
This seat is taken?
By whom? The ghost you are scaring away?
I need a favor, a huge one, and I am desperate enough to ask the scariest man in the room. The seat is taken. By whom? The ghost you are scaring away? You have 5 seconds to leave. I am not leaving. I need a husband. A husband. You are proposing? We just met. Fake husband. For a wedding. Tomorrow night. My ex-fiancé is marrying the woman he cheated on me with. I need to walk in there with someone who looks like he could buy and sell everyone in the room. Someone who makes my ex regret being born. And why would I do that? Because you look bored. You look like you're sitting here waiting for the world to end. And it is taking too long. This is entertainment. What is your price? I can pay you $200. Keep your money. I do not need it. Be ready at 6 p.m. tomorrow. You are doing it? Why? Because you are right. I am bored. And I have never been to a wedding where I wasn't required to kill someone. If this hook grabbed you, if you want to see exactly how a dangerous man handles a cheating ex, smash that like button right now. Subscribe and turn on notifications because this story is about to take you on a ride you will never forget. Let's dive in. Have you ever made a mistake so dangerous, so reckless, that you knew the moment the words left your lips, there was no turning back? A mistake that tasted like expensive scotch, impending doom, and the sweetest kind of revenge? I have. It didn't start in a dark alley or a boardroom. It started in my kitchen with a piece of paper that cost more than my weekly grocery budget. Cream cardstock. Gold foil lettering that caught the light of Chicago afternoon. The names of the happy couple were embossed in a script so elegant it felt like a mockery. Mark and Jessica. Mark, the man who proposed to me a year ago in this very kitchen, down on one knee, promising me forever while the pasta water boiled over on the stove. And Jessica, the woman he'd been sleeping with for 6 months behind my back. The woman who had smiled at me at office parties, poured me wine, and asked me how the wedding planning was going, all while knowing she was the one ruining it. Most people would burn that invitation. They would watch the paper curl into ash in the sink and feel a sense of closure. Most people would stay home on the night of the wedding, drink a bottle of cheap wine, cry into a bowl of ice cream, and tell themselves they were better off. But Zola Kumalo was not most people. I was South African, raised on the wild coast of the Eastern Cape, where the ocean crashes against the rocks with a violence that demands respect. My grandmother used to tell me that we are built from iron and sea salt. We do not do hiding. We do not do quiet resignation. We do not let people break us and then celebrate their victory while we sit in the dark. I stood there in my kitchen, the rain battering against the window pane, and I felt a fire ignite in my chest. It wasn't sadness. Sadness had been 6 months ago. This was fury. Cold, hard, calculating fury. Going alone was not an option. Walking into that ballroom solo would be an admission of defeat. It would paint a picture for every guest there. Poor Zola. Sad Zola. Look at her. Still single. Still broken. Watching the love of her life marry someone else. It would give Mark the satisfaction of pitying me. I refused to be pitied. I needed armor. I needed a shield. But more than that, I needed a weapon. I needed to walk into that country club with someone who didn't just fill the empty space beside me. I needed a man who could make Mark look like the small, insecure, mediocre boy he really was. I needed a man who exuded power. A man who looked like he owned the world and everything in it, including me. But where do you find a man like that on a rainy Tuesday in Chicago? You don't find him on dating apps. You don't find him at the grocery store. You find him where the shadows are deepest and the whiskey is most expensive. That is how I found myself at the Velvet Lounge. It was a place I had no business being in. The kind of establishment where the lighting is low to hide the identities of the patrons, and the air smells of old leather, cigar smoke, and secrets. It was a place for high-stakes players, for politicians making backroom deals, and for men who operated outside the law. I sat at the bar, nursing a martini I hadn't touched for 20 minutes. My hands were shaking, just a little. I tucked them into my lap to hide the tremor. I was wearing my best work skirt and a blouse that felt suddenly cheap compared to the silk and cashmere surrounding me. That is when I saw him. He was sitting in the corner booth, the one furthest from the door, shrouded in shadow like he was part of the architecture. He wasn't looking at his phone. He wasn't looking at the entrance. He wasn't scanning the room with the nervous energy of someone waiting for a date. He was just existing. He was Korean, devastatingly handsome in a way that felt unfair. Sharp jawline that could cut glass. Hair swept back with careless precision. He was wearing a black suit that absorbed the dim light, tailored so perfectly it looked like a second skin. But it wasn't his looks that pulled me in. It was the atmosphere around him. There was a radius of about 10 feet around his table where no one sat. The waitstaff approached him with trembling hands, placed his drink down quickly, and retreated like they were backing away from a tiger. He radiated a kind of silence that drowned out the jazz music playing overhead. He looked like a predator resting between hunts, bored, lethal, and utterly alone. Every survival instinct I had was screaming at me, run, leave, go home to your safe apartment and your cat and your dignity. This man is not a prop. He is a loaded gun. But then I thought about Mark. I thought about the way he had looked at me when he ended it, with that condescending sympathy, telling me I was just too intense, too much work. The whiskey in my blood whispered a different command in my brain. Approach. I slid off the bar stool. I smoothed down my skirt. I took a deep breath that tasted of fear and expensive perfume, and I walked across the room. The air actually grew colder the closer I got his booth. The chatter of the lounge faded into a dull buzz. It felt like walking into the eye of a storm. When I reached his table, he didn't look up. He was tracing the rim of his crystal glass with a long, elegant finger. He had hands that looked like they could play a piano concerto or strangle a man without breaking a sweat. I stood there for a long moment, waiting to be acknowledged. He gave me nothing. Excuse me. He stopped tracing the glass. Slowly, deliberately, he looked up. His eyes were dark, not just brown, but a deep, abyssal black that seemed devoid of warmth. They were calculating eyes. He looked at me not like a woman, but like a math problem he was deciding whether to solve or erase. This seat is taken, he said. His voice was a deep baritone that vibrated in my chest. I looked at the empty velvet bench opposite him. By whom? The ghosts you were scaring away? It was a stupid thing to say. Cheeky, disrespectful, but it was too late to take it back. He didn't blink. You have 5 seconds to leave. I'm not leaving. His eyes narrowed slightly. 1, 2. I need a favor. A huge one. And I am desperate enough to ask the scariest man in the room. He paused at the count of 2. He leaned back, the leather booth creaking under his weight. He crossed his arms over his chest, and I saw a flash of a heavy silver watch and cufflinks that probably cost more than my car. I am not a genie, miss. Zola, and I don't need a wish. I need a husband. That got his attention. His eyebrows rose a fraction of an inch. A husband? You are proposing? We just met. Fake husband, I corrected, my heart hammering against my ribs like a trapped bird. For a wedding. Tomorrow night. My ex-fiancé is marrying the woman he cheated on me with. He stared at me. The silence stretched, heavy and suffocating. I felt sweat prickling my hairline. This was a mistake. This man wasn't just a rich businessman. The faint scar that peeked out from his collar, the calluses on his knuckles, the way he watched the room even while looking at me. This man was dangerous. I need to walk in there with someone who looks like he could buy and sell everyone in the room. Someone who makes my ex regret every choice he has ever made. He picked up his drink, took a slow sip, and set it down. And why would I do that? Because you look bored, I said, the words tumbling out before I could check them. You look like you are sitting here waiting for the world to end, and it is taking too long. This is entertainment. He laughed. It was a dry, dark sound, like dead leaves crunching underfoot. Entertainment. Please, just for one night. Pretend to be my husband. Make me look happy. Then I disappear, and you never see me again. He studied me. He looked at my cheap coat, my defiant chin, the trembling of my hands that I was trying so hard to hide. He seemed to be weighing something. What is your price? He asked. I blinked. I can pay you. $200? He laughed again, genuine amusement flickering in those cold eyes this time. He reached into his jacket pocket, pulled out a money clip, and tossed a stack of bills onto the table. It landed with a heavy thud. It was at least 5 grand. Keep your money. Zola. I do not need it. He stood up. He was tall, towering over me. He had to be at least 6'2". Up close, the power rolling off him was almost suffocating. I am Kang Min-ho. Be ready at 6 p.m. tomorrow. Send your address to this number. He slid a black business card across the table. It had no logo, no company name, just a number embossed in silver. You are doing it? I breathed. Why? Min-ho adjusted his cuffs. His eyes went cold again, the brief amusement vanishing. Because you are right. I am bored, and I have never been to a wedding where I wasn't required to kill someone. He walked away, moving with a fluid grace that was terrifying to watch. He cut to the crowd like a shark through water, and people parted for him without even knowing why. I was left standing in the middle of the lounge, staring at the black card, realizing I had just made a deal with the devil, and I had absolutely no idea what I was getting into. The next day was a blur of anxiety. I paced my small apartment in Rogers Park, checking my phone every 5 minutes. Had I hallucinated him? Was this a cruel prank? A man like that didn't help school teachers get revenge on their exes. Men like that had empires to run and wars to fight. I stared at the dress I had bought. It was emerald green, a department store purchase. It was nice, sensible. It covered enough skin to be modest, but was tight enough to show I had lost weight. It was a safe dress. At 5:59 p.m., my phone buzzed. Downstairs, I grabbed my purse, took one last look in the mirror, and ran down the 3 flights of stairs. I expected a car, maybe a nice Mercedes or a BMW. I did not expect a motorcade. There were 2 black SUVs idling at the curb, their engines purring with a low, menacing rumble. Flanking them was a sleek, silver sedan that looked more like a spaceship than a car. The windows were tinted so dark they looked like black mirrors. Neighbors were looking out of their windows. People walking their dogs stopped to stare. My building was a nice, quiet place. We didn't get motorcades. A driver in a crisp uniform stepped out of the silver sedan and opened the back door. Miss Zola. I swallowed hard and slid into the back seat. The interior smelled of leather and cedarwood. And there, sitting on the other side of the seat, was Min-ho. If I thought he looked expensive the night before, tonight he looked like royalty. He was wearing a tuxedo, but not a standard one. It was midnight blue velvet, the kind of fabric that demanded to be touched. His shirt was crisp white, his bow tie perfectly knotted. He looked like he belonged on the cover of a magazine, or in a history book about conquerors. He turned to look at me. His eyes swept over my green dress. His expression didn't change, but the temperature in the car seemed to drop. What are you wearing? I looked down at my dress, self-conscious. My dress. For the wedding. No. He pressed a button on the intercom. Drive. We have a stop to make. We're going to be late, I protested. The ceremony starts at 7. A queen is never late. Zola. Everyone else is simply early. He looked at me then, his gaze intense, dissecting me. If you are to be my wife, Zola, you cannot look like a schoolteacher. You cannot look safe. You must look like a goddess. You must look like something he lost and can never, ever get back. The car pulled away from the curb, flanked by the SUVs. I sat back, my heart racing. This wasn't just a favor anymore. This was a production. We arrived at a boutique on the Magnificent Mile. The kind of place that didn't have prices on the tags, because if you had to ask, you couldn't afford it. The door was locked, but the moment Min-ho stepped out of the car, a manager was there to open it, bowing slightly. Mr. Kang, we weren't expecting you. I need a dress, Min-ho said, walking past her like she was furniture. For her, something that stops a heart. The staff scrambled. They brought champagne I was too nervous to drink. They brought dresses of silk, of lace, of chiffon. Min-ho sat on a velvet sofa, rejecting them one by one with a shake of his head. Too frilly, too boring, too weak. Finally, the manager brought out a gown of liquid gold silk. It was backless, with a halter neck and a slit that went up to the thigh. It looked like molten metal. That one, Min-ho said. I looked at it. It is beautiful, but it is very bold. Put it on. It wasn't a request. It was a command. I went into the dressing room. The silk felt cool against my skin. It fit like it had been made for me. I looked in the mirror and gasped. The gold against my dark skin was radiant. I didn't look like Zola the teacher. I looked powerful. I looked dangerous. When I stepped out, the sales assistants gasped. The room went quiet. Min-ho stood up slowly. He walked a circle around me, his eyes taking in every inch. He didn't touch me, but his gaze felt like a physical caress. It was heavy, possessive. He stopped in front of me. He reached into his pocket and pulled out a velvet box. He snapped it open. Inside was a necklace. Diamonds. Huge, glittering diamonds set in platinum. It looked heavy. It looked like it cost more than the entire building I lived in. Turn around, he whispered. I turned. I swept my hair up. I felt his cool fingers brush the nape of my neck. I shivered. He fastened the clasp. His breath hitched slightly near my ear, warm and steady. There, he said, his voice rougher than before. Now, they will choke on their jealousy. He stepped back. He looked me in the eye. Listen to me, Zola. Tonight, you are not the ex-fiancé. You are Mrs. Kang. You own the room. You do not look down. You do not apologize. And if anyone disrespects you, they answer to me. I nodded, feeling a strange surge of confidence. I can do that. Good. Then let us go to this wedding. The drive to the venue was quiet, but it wasn't empty. The air between us was charged with electricity. We need a story, I said, breaking the silence. How we met. What you do. If people ask. We met in Cape Town. Min-ho said immediately, looking out the window at the passing city lights. I was there on business. You were walking on the beach at Clifton. The wind was blowing your hair. I saw you, and I knew I would never leave the country without you. I blinked. That is very romantic. It is believable because it is what would happen. I felt a blush heat my cheeks. And what do you do? Import-export, he said smoothly. Logistics. That sounds vague. It is meant to be. Wealth is quiet. Zola. Only the desperate scream about what they do. We are not desperate. We arrived at the country club. It was a sprawling estate in the suburbs, manicured lawns lit by tasteful fairy lights. There were expensive cars in the valet line. When our motorcade pulled up, the chatter outside stopped. The valet scrambled to open the door, his eyes wide as he took in the silver sedan and the flanking SUVs. Min-ho stepped out first. He adjusted his jacket, buttons gleaming. He radiated power. He walked around the car and held his hand out to me. Ready? I took a deep breath. Ready? I took his hand. His grip was firm, warm, grounding. When I stepped out, the gold dress caught the light. I heard a collective intake of breath from the smokers gathered near the entrance. Min-ho tucked my hand into the crook of his arm. We walked up the stairs. Walking into that reception hall was like walking into a gladiator arena. The ceremony was over. The cocktail hour was in full swing. Mark and Jessica were standing near a champagne fountain, accepting congratulations. The moment we walked through the double doors, heads turned. It started as a ripple and became a wave. The whisper started. Who is that? Is that Zola? Who is with her? I kept my head high. I felt Min-ho beside me, a solid wall of velvet and steel. Mark saw us. He was laughing at something Jessica had said. He turned, holding a glass of champagne, and froze. His jaw actually dropped. He looked sweaty. He looked average. His rented tuxedo didn't fit right in the shoulders. Beside him, Jessica looked pretty in white, but suddenly painfully ordinary. Mark took a step forward, then stopped when he saw Min-ho. He looked from me to the dangerous man beside me, confusion warring with fear. Zola? Mark's voice cracked. I didn't think you would come. Hello, Mark. I smiled. It was the sharpest smile I had ever worn. Congratulations. The wedding is lovely. He couldn't stop staring at the dress, at the diamonds. You look different. She looks magnificent. Min-ho spoke for the first time. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried. It cut through the ambient noise like a blade. Mark looked at Min-ho, trying to summon some bravado. Who is this? Min-ho stepped forward. He didn't tower over Mark physically, but spiritually, he crushed him. He held out a hand, but he didn't offer a shake. He just let it hang there, forcing Mark to reach for it. I am her husband. Kang Min-ho. Mark choked on his own spit. Husband? You got married? When you find a diamond in the rough, Min-ho said, his eyes boring into Mark's soul, you do not wait. You secure it. Unlike some men, I know the value of what I hold. The insult was so polite, so brutal, that Mark didn't even know how to respond. He just stood there, gaping. Jessica stepped forward, her smile tight and brittle. Zola, I see you moved on quickly. A bit sudden, isn't it? Min-ho turned his gaze to her. It was dismissive, almost bored. Some loves burn slow, he said. Others strike like lightning. I prefer the lightning. It is more devastating. He turned to me, his expression softening into something that looked terrifyingly like adoration. Shall we get a drink, my love? The air here is a bit stale. He led me away, leaving Mark and Jessica standing there, looking like children who had been scolded. I felt a shiver race down my spine. He was good. He was really, really good. The next hour was a whirlwind. Min-ho was a perfect husband. He held my chair. He filled my glass. He introduced himself to people with a charm that was disarming. He spoke fluent English, then switched to Korean when taking a call, then greeted a waiter in Spanish. But there was an edge to him. Whenever a man looked at me too long, whenever someone got too close, Min-ho would simply stare back until the person looked away, terrified. He made me feel protected. For the first time in a year, I didn't feel like the discarded woman. I felt like the prize. We sat at our table, ignoring the food. Min-ho leaned in close, whispering in my ear. To anyone watching, it looked like sweet nothings. That man at the table to your left, he whispered, his lips brushing my earlobe. He is staring at your necklace. He is wondering how much he could get for it. Really? I whispered back, smiling like he had told me a joke. Yes, and the woman in the red dress. She hates you. She has not stopped glaring since we walked in. I think she wanted Mark for herself. I laughed, a genuine, loud laugh that drew stares. It is funny because it is true. You are having fun, he noted, pulling back to look at me. I am. I admitted. This is better than crying into ice cream. The DJ announced the next song. A slow song. Couples began to drift onto the dance floor. Min-ho stood up. He held out his hand. Dance with me, Mrs. Kang. I took his hand. We walked to the center of the floor. He pulled me close. His hand settled on the small of my back, on the bare skin left exposed by the dress. His touch was electric. We moved together perfectly. He led with confidence, and I followed. The world narrowed down to the scent of his cologne, sandalwood and something metallic, and the warmth of his body. You are tense, he murmured against my hair. I am waiting for the clock to strike 12, I whispered, for the carriage to turn back into a pumpkin, for this to end. I am not a pumpkin, Zola. He pulled me closer, his thigh brushing against mine. And you are not Cinderella. You are a warrior. I see it in your eyes. You survived heartbreak. You survived this night. Why are you helping me? I asked, looking up into those dark, enigmatic eyes. Really? Why go to all this trouble for a stranger? He looked down at me. For a moment, the mask slipped. I saw something raw behind the darkness. Because he said softly, in my world, loyalty is rare. People betray you for money, for power, for fear. Seeing you fight for your dignity. Seeing you refuse to break. It woke something up in me. I wanted to see you win. I felt tears prick my eyes. Thank you. Do not thank me yet, he said, his eyes shifting, scanning the room over my shoulder. The night is not over. And as if on cue, the atmosphere shifted. The double doors at the entrance burst open with a loud crash. The music died. The DJ cut the track. A silence fell over the room, but it wasn't the awed silence of our arrival. It was the terrified silence of prey, realizing the wolves have arrived. A group of 10 men walked in. They were not wedding guests. They wore leather jackets, heavy boots, and expressions of violence. They carried baseball bats and lengths of lead pipe. They looked dirty, gritty, and completely out of place in the pristine ballroom. Guests screamed. Mark scrambled backward, hiding behind his new bride. I froze. My hands gripped Min-ho's shoulders. Min-ho didn't flinch. He didn't look surprised. He didn't look scared. He looked annoyed. He sighed a long, weary sound. He stopped dancing. He gently removed my arms from his neck and stepped in front of me, placing his body between me and the intruders. "Stay behind me," he said calmly. "Min-ho," I whispered, panic rising in my throat. "Who are they?" "Business competitors. The Vipers. They must have tracked my car." He reached up and unbuttoned his velvet jacket. He took it off, folding it neatly, and draped it over the back of a nearby chair. Then he began to roll up his sleeves. As the white cuffs were folded back, I saw them. Tattoos. Dark, intricate ink coiling around his forearms. Serpents. Dragons. They disappeared under his shirt, suggesting they covered his entire body. The leader of the intruders stepped forward. He was a brute of a man with a broken nose and a gold chain. He swung a baseball bat into his palm with a rhythmic thud. "Kong," the leader sneered. "You think you can come to our territory, and we won't notice? You think you can play dress up?" Min-ho finished rolling up his left sleeve. He adjusted his watch. He looked at the leader with an expression of mild distaste. "I think," Min-ho said, his voice carrying clearly across the silent room, "that you are interrupting my wife's dance. And that is very, very rude." The leader laughed, a harsh, barking sound. "Get him." The men charged. I wanted to scream. I wanted to close my eyes. But I couldn't. I watched. The guests expected a massacre. They expected Min-ho to be beaten to a pulp. Mark was already cowering under a table. But what happened next was not a beating. It was a masterclass. Min-ho moved like water, fluid, unstoppable. The first man swung a bat at Min-ho's head. Min-ho didn't even blink. He ducked, a movement so fast it blurred. He grabbed the man's arm, used the man's own momentum, and threw him. The attacker flew through the air and crashed into a table of hors d'oeuvres, sending shrimp cocktails and glass flying. The second man lunged with a pipe. Min-ho sidestepped. He kicked the man's knee. There was a sickening crunch that echoed in the hall. The man screamed and went down. Min-ho didn't stop. He was a whirlwind of violence. He didn't waste energy. Every punch connected. Every block broke a bone. He was brutal. He was efficient. He was terrifying. I stood there, hand over my mouth, watching the man who had fastened my diamond necklace break a man's nose with his palm. This wasn't import-export. This wasn't logistics. This was war. This was the Mafia. Within 2 minutes, 8 men were groaning on the floor, clutching broken limbs. The ballroom was destroyed. Tables overturned. Cake smashed. Only the leader was left standing. He held his bat, but his hands were shaking. He looked at Min-ho, eyes wide with pure terror. Min-ho wasn't even breathing hard. He straightened his cufflinks. He walked toward the leader slowly, step by step. The sound of his dress shoes on the parquet floor was the only sound in the room. The leader dropped the bat. It clattered loudly. Min-ho stopped inches from his face. "Go back to your boss," Min-ho said softly. "Tell him that if he interrupts my date night again, I will not just break his men. I will burn his entire organization to the ground. I will salt the earth so nothing grows there again. Do you understand?" The man nodded frantically. "Run." The man ran. He scrambled over his fallen comrades and fled out the door. Min-ho turned back to the room. The wedding guests were paralyzed. They stared at him like he was a monster. Mark was peeking out from under the tablecloth, pale as a ghost. Min-ho picked up his velvet jacket. He dusted off a speck of imaginary lint. He put it back on. He walked over to me. I was standing like a statue. My heart was pounding so hard I thought it might burst. He offered his hand. His face was calm. The monster was gone, hidden back behind the mask of a handsome gentleman. "Shall we go?" he asked pleasantly. "The DJ is terrible anyway." I looked at his hand. It was the same hand that had just dismantled 10 men. It was bruised across the knuckles now, a little red. I looked at the room, at the wreckage, at Mark cowering in fear, at Jessica sobbing into her hands. And then I looked at Min-ho. He wasn't looking at them. He was looking at me, waiting for judgment, waiting for me to run. I took his hand. We walked out of the ballroom in silence. We stepped over the groaning men on the floor. No one tried to stop us. No one dared to breathe. We walked out into the cool night air. The valet brought the car around instantly, looking terrified. We got in. The door closed, shutting out the world. The car pulled away. The adrenaline crashed. I started to shake. My teeth chattered. You are a mobster, I whispered. A gangster. Min-ho looked out the window, watching the city pass by. I am a man who protects what is his. I told you, Zola, I am dangerous. You could have been killed, not by amateurs like that. He turned to me. His eyes were guarded now. I am sorry I ruined your night. I am sorry I ruined your revenge. I let out a sound that was half laugh, half sob. Ruined it? Min-ho, that was the most incredible thing I have ever seen. Mark peed his pants. I saw it. Min-ho chuckled. A low, warm sound. He did. I saw it too. He looked at me, and the amusement faded into something darker, heavier. But now you know what I really am. And that means you are not safe around me. I felt pretty safe when you were throwing men through tables. Zola, he said my name like a prayer and a warning. My life is blood and violence. Tonight was an exception. You are light. I am shadow. Shadows consume light. He signaled the driver. We are taking you home. And then I will vanish. Keep the dress. Keep the diamonds. Consider it payment for the entertainment. No, I said. He blinked. No, I don't want the diamonds. And I don't want you to vanish. I shifted in my seat, turning to face him. The gold silk rustled. My whole life, I have dated safe men. Men like Mark. Men who smile and follow the rules. And you know what they do? They stab you in the back because they are too cowardly to face you. They are weak. I reached out and took his hand. His knuckles were bruising purple. I ran my thumb over the bruise. You stood in front of me. You fought for me. I am a criminal, Zola, and I am a South African woman who knows that sometimes the law doesn't mean justice. I know who you are, Min-ho. I saw how you looked at me in the dress. I saw how you treated the waitstaff. I saw how you protected a room full of strangers who judged you. You called me your wife in there, I whispered. It was a role. A lie. Was it? The air in the car grew thin. Min-ho looked at my hand on his. He looked terrified. More terrified than he had been facing 10 men with bats. If you stay, he said hoarsely, there's no going back. My enemies saw you tonight. They will know your face. You will be a target. Then teach me to shoot, I said. Teach me to fight. Don't push me away to protect me. I can protect myself. I don't want to be alone anymore. And looking at you right now, I don't think you do either. Min-ho closed his eyes. He let out a shuddering breath. When he opened them, the cold mask was gone. There was only raw, naked longing. I have wanted to kiss you since you walked up to my table and insulted me. He admitted, then stopped talking. He leaned in. The kiss wasn't tentative. It wasn't gentle. It was an explosion. It tasted like danger and adrenaline and expensive scotch. It was messy and desperate. It was a promise of trouble. It was a seal on a contract that had nothing to do with fake marriages and everything to do with a very real, very dangerous future. When we pulled apart, breathless, Min-ho rested his forehead against mine. Okay, he whispered. Okay, where are we going? I asked as the car sped past the exit from my apartment. Not to your apartment. Min-ho said, his thumb stroking my cheek. It is not secure. They know your face now. We are going to my home. Is that a kidnapping? He smirked, the ghost of a smile touching his lips. It is a honeymoon. Fake husbands have obligations, do they not? The car sped into the night, carrying us away from the suburbs, away from Mark and Jessica and my old, safe life. We were heading toward the city skyline, toward a penthouse that was a fortress, toward a future that would be bloody, chaotic, and difficult. But as I looked at the dangerous man holding my hand like it was the only anchor in the world, I knew one thing for sure. I would never have to face a storm alone again. The car ride ended in a subterranean garage that looked more like a military bunker than a parking lot. Concrete walls, fluorescent lights humming with a clinical buzz, armed guards standing at attention by the elevators. When the car stopped, Min-ho didn't move immediately. He sat there, gripping my hand, staring at the concrete wall as if he could see through it. "Welcome home," he said quietly, or perhaps I should say, "Welcome to the cage." We took a private elevator up 40 floors. My ears popped. The numbers on the digital display climbed higher and higher, taking us away from the street, away from the sirens, away from the life I knew. The door slid open directly into a penthouse. It was breathtaking. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered a panoramic view of the Chicago skyline, the city lights glittering like spilled diamonds against the black velvet of the lake. But it was also cold. The furniture was sleek, modern, and Italian. There were no family photos. No throw pillows that looked like they had been sat on. No knickknacks. It looked like a museum exhibit titled The Lonely King. Min-ho walked in and tossed his keys on a marble console table. The sound echoed. "Do you want a drink?" he asked, walking to a bar that was stocked better than the lounge we had met in. "Water," I said. My throat felt like sandpaper. He poured me a glass of water and himself a whiskey. He downed his in one swallow. Then he turned to me, leaning his hip against the bar, watching me with those intense, unreadable eyes. "You can take the guest bedroom," he said. "It is down the hall, second door on the left. It has an ensuite bathroom. You'll find everything you need." I nodded. The adrenaline was fading, replaced by a bone-deep exhaustion. "Thank you, Zola." I stopped. I looked at him. He crossed the room. He didn't touch me this time. He stopped a foot away, respecting the invisible barrier between us. "Tonight changed everything," he said. "Tomorrow, we will have to make decisions. Hard ones. But for night, you are safe here. No one gets in without my permission. No one." "I believe you," I whispered. He looked like he wanted to say more. His hand twitched at his side, as if he wanted to reach out. But he didn't. He nodded once, turned, and walked toward the expanse of windows, looking out at the city he ruled. I went to the guest room. It was bigger than my entire apartment. The sheets were Egyptian cotton. The shower had 6 different jets. But as I lay there in the dark, listening to the silence of the 44th floor, I realized that safety felt a lot like isolation. I didn't sleep. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw the man's knee crunching backward. I saw the terror in Mark's eyes. I felt the heat of Min-ho's body against mine on the dance floor. Morning came with a gray, steel light. I walked out into the living room. Min-ho was already awake. He was dressed in a dark gray suit, talking on the phone in rapid-fire Korean. He looked out the window, his posture rigid. When he heard me, he hung up without saying goodbye. "There is coffee," he said, gesturing to a silver pot on the counter. I poured a cup. I was still wearing the gold dress, now wrinkled and out of place in the morning light. "I need to go to my apartment," I said. "I need clothes. I need to feed my cat. I need to call my school and tell them I don't know what to tell them." Min-ho looked at me. "You cannot go to your apartment." "Excuse me? My men went there this morning. Your door was kicked in. Your place was tossed." My cup rattled against the saucer. "What?" "The Vipers. They were looking for you. They wanted leverage against me. Since they couldn't get to me, they went for the woman I claimed as my wife." I felt the blood drain from my face. "My cat, Luna, she is fine." Min-ho gestured to the corner of the living room. There, on a silk armchair that probably cost $10,000, sat Luna, my scruffy calico cat, grooming herself like she owned the place. Beside the chair were 3 suitcases. "My men packed your things," Min-ho said. "Clothes, documents, essentials, and the cat. You moved me in? Without asking?" "I secured you," he corrected. "There's a difference." I slammed the cup down. Coffee splashed onto the marble. "This isn't securing me, Min-ho. This is controlling me. I have a job. I have a life. I am a teacher, for God's sake. I have 3rd graders waiting for me. You cannot go back to that school." "Zola." "Why?" "Because you say so?" "Because if you walk into that classroom, you put a target on every single one of those children." The words hit me like a physical blow. I opened my mouth to argue, but the air stuck in my throat. He wasn't threatening me. He was stating a fact. A cold, hard, terrifying fact. "If the Vipers know you are important to me," Min-ho continued, his voice low, "they will use anything to get to you your job, your friends, your students. The only way to keep them safe is to stay away from them until this threat is neutralized. I sank onto a bar stool. I put my head in my hands. My life, my normal, boring, safe life. It was gone, incinerated in the fire of one reckless decision. I am sorry, Min-ho said. He sounded genuine. I did not intend for this to happen. I thought we would play a game for one night, and I would make sure you were untouchable. I underestimated their desperation. I lifted my head. So what now? I just sit here, in your tower, waiting for you to come home, and tell me it is safe to go outside? No. He walked over to me. He placed his hands on the counter, leaning in. You told me last night not to push you away. You told me to teach you to shoot, to fight. I stared at him. I did. Did you mean it? Or was it just the adrenaline talking? I looked at Luna, sleeping on the silk chair. I thought about my rec department. I thought about the men with baseball bats. And then I looked at Min-ho, the man who had caused this storm, but also the only man standing between me and the rain. I meant it, I said. I am South African, Min-ho. We don't hide under the bed. If I am going to be in your world, I am not going to be a liability. I am going to be a partner. A slow smile spread across his face. It wasn't the polite smile from the wedding. It was predatory, proud. Good, he said. Go change. We're something you can move in. Training starts in 20 minutes. The next 3 weeks were hell. Min-ho didn't go easy on me. He didn't treat me like a fragile doll. He treated me like a recruit. We trained in a private gym on the lower level of the building. It had mats, weights, and a soundproof firing range. First, it was the guns. Min-ho handed me a Glock 19. It felt heavy, cold, greasy. Respect it, he ordered. It is not a toy. It is not a movie prop. It is a machine designed to end life. If you point it, you must be ready to destroy what is in front of you. Can you do that? I don't know, I admitted. You have to know. Hesitation gets you killed. He stood behind me, adjusting my stance. His chest pressed against my back. His hands covered mine on the grip. It was intimate, but not romantic. It was survival. Breathe, he whispered in my ear. Squeeze. Do not pull. The first time I fired, the recoil shocked me. The sound was deafening even through the earmuffs. The smell of cordite filled my nose. I missed the target completely. Again, Min-ho said. We spent hours there. My arms ached. My fingers blistered. But slowly, the holes in the paper target moved closer to center. Then came the hand-to-hand combat. This was harder. It required me to be close to him, to touch him, to try to hurt him. Hit me, he said, standing on the mat, hands loose at his sides. I can't. Hit me, Zola. If you do not hit me, the man in the alley will kill you. I swung. He blocked it easily. He swept my legs. I hit the mat with a thud that knocked the wind out of me. Get up, he said. I got up. I swung again. He threw me again. I was bruised. I was frustrated. I was angry. Is this fun for you? I yelled, lying on my back, staring at the ceiling lights. Beating up a schoolteacher? Min-ho dropped to his knees beside me. He was sweating, his hair falling over his forehead. His eyes were blazing. Do you think I like this? He hissed. Do you think I like seeing bruises on your skin? Every time you fall, I want to catch you. Every time you wins, I want to stop, then stop. I can't. He grabbed my shoulders. Because out there, they won't stop. Out there, they won't care that you are beautiful and smart and kind. They will break you, Zola, and I cannot survive that. I cannot survive losing you. The silence that followed was heavy. He breathed hard, looking at me. I looked back. You won't lose me, I whispered. I reached up. I grabbed his collar, and I pulled him down. This kiss wasn't like the one in the car. That one had been adrenaline. This one was something else. It was sweat and pain and shared fear. It was a promise. We didn't train anymore that day. We went back to the penthouse. We didn't make it to the bedroom. We collided in the hallway, shedding clothes, shedding defenses. Min-ho loved the way he fought. Intense, focused, completely overwhelming. He touched me like he was memorizing me, like he was trying to imprint himself onto my skin so that everyone would know I belonged to him. And I touched him back. I traced the scars on his chest. I traced the dragons on his arms. I learned the map of his violence and kissed every inch of it. After that day, the dynamic changed. We weren't just a mobster and the teacher anymore. We were a unit. We ate dinner together on the balcony, watching the city. We talked, not about the weather, but about real things. He told me about his childhood in Busan, about his father, who was a hard man who taught him that love was a weakness. He was wrong, I said, running my fingers through Min-ho's hair as we lay on the sofa. Love isn't a weakness. It's the only reason to fight. I am starting to believe that Min-ho murmured, but peace in Min-ho's world is just a breath before the scream. For weeks after the wedding, Min-ho had to leave town. A shipment was coming in at the docks, and there were complications. He didn't want to go. He paced the living room, checking his gun, checking the security feeds. I will be back in 3 hours, he said. Do not leave the apartment. Yoon is at the door. There are 2 guards in the lobby. You are safe. I am safe, I repeated. Go. Handle your business. He kissed me hard, like it was the last time, and left. I tried to read. I tried to watch TV, but I felt restless. Luna was pacing too, sensing the tension. My phone buzzed. It was a text from Mark. Asterisk, I know I shouldn't contact you. But Jessica left me. She took the dog. I'm sorry, Zola. Can we talk? Please. Asterisk. I stared at the screen. A month ago, this text would have destroyed me. Now, it felt like a message from a different lifetime. I didn't even feel angry. I felt nothing. I deleted the text. Suddenly, the power in the penthouse cut out. The lights died. The hum of the refrigerator stopped. The silence was absolute. I froze. Then, I heard a sound that made my blood turn to ice. A muffled thump from the hallway. Then another. The sound of bodies hitting the floor. Min-ho had said no one gets in without his permission. Someone was getting in. I didn't scream. I didn't hide under the bed. I ran to the bedroom. I opened the bedside table. I took out the Glock 19. It felt heavy in my hand, but this time the weight was comforting. I racked the slide, just like Min-ho had taught me. Clack, clack, around in the chamber. I moved to the living room, keeping low, using the marble island as cover. The front door lock clicked. Electronic override. The door swung open. 3 men walked in. They were dressed in black tactical gear. They had night vision goggles. They moved with professional silence. These weren't the thugs with baseball bats. These were assassins. Clear the room, one whispered. Find the girl. Make it look like an accident. They spread out. My heart was hammering against my ribs, but my hands were steady. I breathed. Asterisk squeeze. Do not pull. Asterisk. The first man walked past the kitchen island. He didn't see me crouched in the shadows. I stood up. Hey, I said. He turned, raising his weapon. I fired. The sound was thunder in enclosed space. The recoil traveled up my arm. I didn't miss. The bullet caught him in the shoulder. He spun around and fell, his gun skittering across the floor. The other 2 men spun toward me. Contact. One yelled. I ducked back behind the marble island as bullets chipped away the stone above my head. Dust and rock fragments rained down on me. I scrambled to the other side of the island. I popped up. I fired 2 shots. One went wild, shattering a vase. The other hit the second man in the leg. He went down screaming. The third man, the leader, was smart. He didn't shoot. He rushed me. He vaulted over the island before I could realign my aim. He kicked the gun out of my hand. It slid across the floor, out of reach. He grabbed me by the throat and slammed me against the refrigerator. His grip was like iron. Black spots danced in my vision. You are a feisty one, he hissed. His face inches from mine. The chairman said you were just a teacher. I choked out. I brought my knee up, hard, right between his legs. He groaned and his grip loosened for a split second. It was enough. I didn't try to run. I didn't try to retrieve the gun. I remembered the mat. I remembered the bruises. Use their momentum. I grabbed his tactical vest. I twisted my hips. I threw my weight backward. We crashed to the floor, but I landed on top. I didn't hesitate. I jammed my thumb into his eye socket. He screamed. He tried to buck me off, but I held on. I grabbed a heavy crystal decanter from a counter above us and brought it down on his head. He went limp. I scrambled backward, gasping for air, my throat burning. The room was silent again, except for the groans of the man shot in the leg. I crawled to my gun. I picked it up. I stood over the man. "Do not move," I said, my voice shaking but loud. "Do not move, or I will finish it." I stood there in the dark, in the ruins of the beautiful penthouse, holding a gun on 3 hitmen. That is how Min-ho found me 10 minutes later. The elevator doors pinged open. He rushed in, gun drawn, flanked by 5 of his own men. He saw the bodies. He saw the blood. He saw the shattered marble. And then he saw me. Zola. He dropped his gun. He ran to me. He didn't care about the hitmen. He didn't care about the mess. He grabbed my face. His hands were shaking violently. He checked me for bullet holes. He checked my throat where the bruises were already forming. "Are you hurt? Tell me. Are you hurt?" "I'm okay," I whispered. "I'm okay." He pulled me into his chest. He buried his face in my neck. He let out a sound that wasn't human, a guttural roar of relief and rage. "I thought I lost you," he sobbed into my skin. "I thought I was too late." "You taught me well," I said, wrapping my arms around him. "I held the line, Min-ho. I held the line." He pulled back. He looked at the men on the floor. He looked at the precision of the shots. He looked at the man I had taken down in hand-to-hand combat. He looked back at me with a mixture of horror and awe. "You did," he whispered. "You fought." "I told you," I said, holstering the gun. "I am not a pumpkin." The aftermath was swift and brutal. Min-ho didn't just retaliate against the chairman. He obliterated him. It was a war that lasted 3 days. And when the smoke cleared, there was no one left in Chicago who dared to speak the name Kang Min-ho without trembling. But the biggest change wasn't in the city. It was in us. Min-ho stopped trying to hide me. He stopped trying to put me in a tower. He realized that you don't protect a lioness by locking her in a cage. You protect her by letting her walk beside you. 6 months later, I walked into the gala event at the Art Institute. The camera flashes were blinding. I was wearing gold again. Always gold. It had become my signature. Min-ho was beside me. He had his hand on the small of my back. The room parted for us. The whispers started. "That is her. That is a queen." They didn't say it with judgment anymore. They said it with fear and respect. We greeted the mayor. We greeted the police commissioner. Everyone smiled. Everyone bowed. I saw a familiar face in the crowd. Mark. He was waiting tables. He was holding a tray of champagne flutes. He looked older, tired. His hairline was receding. He saw me. He saw the way the room revolved around me. He saw the way Min-ho looked at me, like I was the only star in the sky. Mark lowered his eyes. He turned and walked away, disappearing into the kitchen. I didn't feel triumph. I didn't feel anything for him at all. He was a ghost from a life that belonged to a different woman. Min-ho leaned down. "What are you thinking about?" He whispered. I looked up at him, at the scars I knew by heart, at the man who had dragged me into the dark and taught me how to see in it. "I am thinking," I said, "that I really love this dress." He smiled, the predatory, proud smile that was just for me. "I love what is in it," he said. He kissed me, right there in front of the cameras, in front of the city. And for the first time in my life, I didn't care who was watching. I had found my monster, and he had found his queen. They say that love is supposed to be soft. They say it is supposed to be gentle and safe. Maybe for some people it is. But for us, love was a loaded gun. Love was a bruised knuckle. Love was standing back to back in the dark, knowing that no matter what came through that door, we would face it together. And I wouldn't trade it for all the safety in the world. So, here's the truth about my mistake. Accepting that invitation was reckless. Walking up to Min-ho was insane. But sometimes, the best things in life are on the other side of terror. Sometimes, you have to burn your old life down to find the one you were meant to live. If you are sitting there, holding on to a safe life that makes you miserable, let it go. Find your own storm. Find your own iron and sea salt. because you never know. The monster in the corner booth might just be the love of your life. If this story made your heart race, if you cheered when Zola took that shot, hit that like button right now. Share this with a friend who needs a reminder that they are stronger than they think. And tell me in the comments, what is the bravest thing you have ever done for love? Did it pay off? Or did it crash and burn? I want to hear your stories. Until next time, stay dangerous. And never, ever settle for a love that doesn't look at you like you are the only person in the room. Subscribe for more. Peace.